I need to keep every single one of you contained for this episode of The Walking Dead Reviews. I'll be back in just a second. What is going on, everyone? This is Ninja Geek here, and we're talking about episode 15 of The Walking Dead. We're bringing you a review here, as we always do. This is going to be the second to last review because, unfortunately, Season 5 is coming to a close, with Season 6 coming later on in October. Without further ado, I don't want to delay this episode any longer. We're going to get right into it because it is a really action-paced and really a lot of stuff did happen last night, as we can tell. So we're going to start in. Obviously, last week we saw how Nicholas was being just a complete jerk in the episode before where they went on the run, and Nicholas basically lied to Deanna about the whole situation. You know, he was just like, you know, this is what happened. You know, Glenn was just forcing us to just do things that I wouldn't have done. You know, he was pushing everyone out of the way. He caused Aiden to die. He caused a couple people to die. Deanna, I don't know if she believes Nicholas's story when he's telling this to her. I'm not sure on that. She doesn't seem like she believes it full on, like, oh yeah, Nicholas, I definitely believe you. But, you know, then again, you know, Nicholas is just completely flat out lying to her, you know, and that's why he's on a list. I'm going to go over my list at the end of this video, talking about who I think that needs to die by the end of the season, or die pretty soon. My guess is the end of the season, hopefully, which will happen, but we're going to talk about that at the end of the episode. So Nicholas is one person that I feel. Later on in the episode, though, Glenn runs this by Nicholas, how, you know, Nicholas is lying, and he basically says to Nick, I'll call him that, you know, he basically was the one that caused these people to die, obviously. It wasn't Glenn's fault. Glenn was actually trying to save, like, everyone. It's not like he was trying to save his own people. Nick was the one that caused all of these deaths to happen, and he just wanted to let Nick know that. And Nick was like, are you threatening me? And Glenn was just like, no, I'm not threatening you, I'm doing it to save you. So I don't know what that's entirely supposed to mean, but I'm thinking that, you know, it means that he's going to try and save him from future kind of disturbances within the group. Also, Glenn does tell Rick about what happened last week in the group, and Glenn kind of just wants to stay there. Obviously, with the devastating factor that Noah did die in last week's episode, you know, Glenn kind of tries to want to make it work with Alexandria. Rick doesn't even see that at all. He thinks that obviously he doesn't want to harm anyone in Alexandria at this point. Like, at this particular point in the episode, he's not like, yep, let's kill him. He's just like, you know, well, I don't think we should really trust these people, but Glenn wants to actually go ahead and full-on trust the people of Alexandria, just because he feels that Noah did the same thing. It was like a new beginning for him, and Rick just, I don't know, they just see a little bit of differences there. And obviously I agree with Rick for especially what happens later on in the episode. Carol obviously talked with Rick last week about Pete's disturbances with Jesse, obviously him being abusive, as we saw. This episode, it was kind of hard to hint at more last episode, but this episode you obviously know what the problem was there, and that's why the whole reason why Sam, their son, wanted to actually borrow a gun from Carol, because, you know, Sam is just seeing his father just beat on his wife, and it's complete abusiveness, and obviously that shouldn't be allowed. I mean, he's had problems like this all of his life. It just hasn't turned out to be like this now, but still, that shouldn't even happen. And when a kid asks for a gun, you know, it's obvious they're going to need help. So Rick tries to help out, and it doesn't, I mean, we're going to obviously get to that later on the episode. Let's talk about Sasha for a little bit, because Sasha kind of went on her own rampage. She's been like this ever since Tyrese died. Obviously, she's trying to cope with her loss of her own, like, brother. You know, it's just probably a devastating thing to cope with, but at the same time, I mean, you know, there have been other characters that experience worse stuff than that, and it's just like, you know, and they haven't completely turned into full-on rampage savage mode where they're just going on taking out all these walkers. And obviously she doesn't quite have a reason for it right now. You know, we don't, either that or we just don't know the reason for it. She's just doing whatever she does. But I think it's also in her character, as well as a lot of the other characters, to be out in the wild versus in the walls of Alexandria. It just makes sense. You know, they've been out there for so long that, you know, going into a place like Alexandria, it just seems unnatural for them. The real life world that we live in today even would seem seem way unnatural for them, and they would rather live in the wild because that's just what they've been used to for the past couple of years. When Michonne and Rosita actually find Sasha actually doing this, Michonne decides to join in for her own sake, as well as obviously Rosita tries to join in as well. There's just a bunch of walkers there, and we get to see also a cool kind of clips from past seasons of Michonne, just slicing walkers in different areas, and it's just kind of like bringing her back to a time, and I guess she had to do that for herself, and obviously, Sasha just wasn't there, she just didn't want any help at all, she basically told them that she didn't want help, and Michonne was just like, this isn't for you, this is basically what happened, but I just wanted to add that in, that, I really did think that the Michonne clips from season 2, 3, I think there might have been some season 4 in there, if I do mistake myself, but it was a cool montage kind of little thing, flashback, if you will, from that part of the episode. In the beginning of the episode, we kind of see Rick, and, he's just standing there, and this is after, Carol tells him more about Pete's, abusiveness towards Jesse, and Rick is just like, well, he's got to do something, he just can't just let it just go. He has to take on this challenge of what to do with Pete, and he's probably, obviously, he talks to Deanna a little bit in the episode we're going to actually get to next, but he's just standing there, at night, and Pete asks, Rick, are you okay? Like, he's just standing there, and Rick just says, keep walking. It's a little bit of a weird moment. I thought that actually in that moment that Rick was going to kill Pete just by the way that it seemed that it was going to go. Like, he just didn't seem happy at all. But it turns out that he just, just kept walking and just left Rick alone. At that point, Pete just, from the beginning of the whole thing, just doesn't even seem like a nice guy to begin with. Rick talks with Deanna about Pete, saying, and Deanna obviously already knows about Pete I don't know how she knew, but maybe Jesse told her way earlier on, way before even Rick got there, but Deanna knows about Pete's abusiveness, but they need him as a medical doctor. Well, I'm sorry, but any medical doctor or whoever is taking care of these patients who abuses other people for fun or however he sees it is just not an option. It just isn't going to work out, Pete, I don't care if he's a doctor, I don't care if he's the best doctor on the face of the earth. He has got to get the hell out of there. He's got to die. As part of the preview of last week's episode, we saw Carl and Enid in the woods, and we didn't really obviously see any more relationships build between them, but we see a kind of, closer relationship as a friend build in between them as well, because, they're just sitting there and they get to talk a little bit about different things. We get to see some of Enid's strategics of surviving this apocalypse and how she's been living in a world like this. We don't really get to know her past a whole lot, but we can see as time moves on maybe that they get to know each other a little bit more, but it depends on what happens in the future, obviously in the last episode, so I thought that was pretty cool. Another thing that we got to see was Daryl and Aaron out. Obviously they're going out recruiting people, and they come across a lady tied to a tree with another W or M depending on how you look at it, but it's probably most likely a W on the forehead. And another thing to note, which I didn't notice until I read an IGN article today on this, that lady was tied to a tree the same way how Carol told the story to Sam about how he would die if he told anyone about the gun she was stealing tied to a tree, kind of make a resemblance. That's a little bit weird, but at the same time, I don't know if it's supposed to be a coincidence or if it's just, I don't know. There's so many things to just talk about that it just makes your mind go crazy after a little bit. But anyways, this is when we get to the end of the episode where Rick basically talks to Jesse about, what he has to do to keep Pete away from her to not be abusive. Pete walks into the house while they're talking, basically while they're done talking, and, Rick is just like, you're gonna come with me. Pete's like, no, get out of my house, and basically a fight just goes down. Pete is just beating up on Rick. Rick is beating up on Pete. They get it so bloody, so out into the street. They break through a window even, and it's just so intense for the last couple. I think it was like 10 minutes left of the episode. And the fight, it just keeps going on. Nobody can stop it until Deanna comes and says, that is enough. And Rick is just like explaining with his like gun pointed out, he's explaining how her rules aren't right. He finally lost it at that point because you could see how they need to control these people here at the camp of Alexandria, or not really a camp, like the town almost, They need to control, they need to have rules to control it. The world isn't like what it was back then, or now, I guess you could say. It's not like it would be now. It's a whole different society. Deanna's living in a season 1 apocalypse. She's not living in a world now where, she just thinks that she could just deal with things as they come. They need to be dealt with before and now, before, anything else. And Deanna obviously doesn't see that. He basically says, we need to control these people, and she's like, that's never been more clear to me than it is now. And she was talking about Rick, how she needs to control Rick, and Rick just went off then, because obviously that's not what should happen. Rick, I mean, you could say that Rick kind of barged in on Pete's entire life, but come on, I mean, when you think about it, Rick isn't doing anything completely wrong. He was trying to save Jesse and Sam from being abused again, of seeing that abusiveness. It should not happen at all in general, even in real life. If you knew somebody that was being abused, you wouldn't just sit back and just do nothing. So he tried to step up, and that's what ended up happening. But then, all at the end of the episode, Michonne just knocks him straight when he's just talking to everyone about explaining how Deanna's rules are wrong and how it needs to be controlled and how everything needs to be dealt with and according to his way, according to Rick's way. And Michonne just knocks him out. And at that point, as soon as that happened, just knocks him out, picks up the gun. I was like, well, Michonne, you are on the to die list. You're gonna die. I mean, really, like that. It's completely stupid. For all of the times that Rick has helped Michonne, for all the times that she has been there for him, and he's been there even more so for her. I mean, even back in season 3, when he was basically saving her for the governor, when the governor wanted Michonne, and Rick didn't even give her up then. And she just goes ahead and does that. Now, you may think, oh, well, she had to do that or else something, nothing would have been solved, it would have just probably been a bloody fight. But still, she's a part of Rick's group. She's a part of his group since season 3, and she just completely turned him down. If I was Rick, I would not want to be in association with Michonne ever again. And I hope she dies, honestly. I really do at this point. She should have not done that. But anyways, getting on to the people that need to die list, we're getting right into the season finale of season 5. But here's my list of people that need to die anyway. So obviously Pete, we discussed, needs to die for the reasons that we discussed in today's episode. Gabriel needs to die because of what happened in last week's episode, where he basically told Deanna about Rick's group and the wrong things. It's all about this Satan stuff that he's just been randomly coming up with. He's just going crazy. Gabriel, I hope he dies. Deanna, obviously, I hope she dies too, because of the way she treated Rick and how she doesn't understand where he's coming from and his rules. Nicholas, from before, obviously, in this episode, where he just basically lied to Deanna. Basically, everyone at Alexandria, I hope, dies. Obviously, there are nice people there at Alexandria, but the main people just have to mainly get out of the way and just die. That's what I hope. And now Michonne, for her actions that she'd done to Rick, and maybe Sasha a little bit, but obviously she didn't do anything towards anyone else. She's just been basically doing everything for herself. She's been going on the rampages as we have discussed in this episode. So if you did enjoy this episode, leave a like and subscribe for more of this content. Well, actually, one more episode until the end comes of season 5, and then obviously I will post more of this when season 6 starts back in October. So leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you on whatever my next video happens to be. I'm Ninja Geek. I'm out. Peace.